Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi. Got some Destiny gameplay, but more interested in talking to you about team building. So when I was growing up, I was one of those kids. I was always an informal leader. I don't know why. It's not something I commanded, but people would ask my opinion. I was a skinny little white kid. I grew up in Detroit. My parents divorced when I was 5. We moved down to Detroit. My mom and my 2 sisters was in a mixed neighborhood. It was pretty affluent for Detroit, but we were poor because divorce was not heard of back then. And so I had a whole mix of friends. Played sports every day, played baseball. We're kind of kids where they would tell me that you don't have triple speed, right? And, when we're playing basketball or something, we'd pick players and, they'd try to assign me like someone like Gail Goodrich, who was a guard on the Lakers. I didn't want to be Gail Goodrich. I wanted to be someone good. Nothing against you, Gail Goodrich, wherever you are. But I was always kind of in that mix. And I loved basketball. I remember going out for football. My mom took me up there. I just couldn't do it. The guy put me on the line. Played basketball in junior high. Played baseball. Was a pitcher in a Catholic youth organization where they had 3 balls, 2 strikes. I was the first game I ever played. I struck out 11. Walked 2, gave up 3 hits. We lost like 8-4 because it's 7th and 8th graders. My dad saw me play. Probably was the happiest. Later in my life, when I look back at that, I was happy. I ended up learning how to throw a curveball, and obviously with the results, I threw my arm out. The thing that's going to happen when you throw curveballs, you shouldn't throw curveballs when you're a kid. So eventually I moved out for a lot of different reasons. Not going to go into this video about it, but I moved out with my dad, who lived out in the kind of the country, not even the suburbs. It was even further from that. And right before I went to out to there, I played basketball. I went to high school. My freshman year, I made the freshman team over some black guys, and they were all bummed out. Like, why you just you made it because you're white and blah, blah, blah. And the other kids on the team were like, no, dude, he's just better than you. And I wasn't the best kid on the team. I was like a backup point guard. I wasn't great. I'm no anything, but I was better than those guys. But I was always kind of in that crowd. I wasn't the leader of the crowd, but I was someone that, for whatever reason, I got invited and always included in a lot of things. And I wasn't a leader in high school. Again, informal leader maybe. In college, I started spreading my wings, more to be, I was in student government. I was in fraternity. I was running for all kinds of offices. I had no idea on how to harness all that. I was out of the high school, so I was out of the whole thing of the shadow of my father, I guess, and the shadow of my hometown. And so I could be more, but I flamed out. My dad died when I was 18. That's not part of the story. Moved down to Kentucky with my mom. Went to a school called Northern Kentucky University. And I went to that school. I enrolled kind of late. They ended up putting me in the honors program. They saw my ACT. But my grades were atrocious. And my first year of college, my dad died like the first day of college. So I had like a semester of college, but they put me in the honors program, and I really thrived. Someone could recognize I had something, and I had something to contribute. So I kind of took off from there. And then I went in the Coast Guard, and so I'm going to kind of focus on that because that's an area where they care more about leadership and those kind of things. And it's not something, what the people in the military will like to say. There's sayings like leaders are born, not made. And then they got to a point where that was exclusive to people, so they tried to not say that. But if you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader. You carry on that yoke, and you're just a leader. You're an informal leader at a minimum. So when I went to boot camp, I had moderate success in college, but I had all this potential, but I could never harness it because I could never focus it. So that was a good thing that the military taught me, was focus. The Coast Guard taught me focus. And in boot camp, it's really fast. Like the third day of boot camp, they have you pick assignments, and I cleaned urinals and toilets. Like I picked that for myself. And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to do the shittiest, lowest perceived job that there was, and I just wanted to grind it out. I didn't know that's what it was called, but that's what I wanted to do. And what I realized, some of the things in the Coast Guard in boot camp, you have two things going on. You're always worried about your shipmates, but then there's a component where you were competing. And so they would score everything. There was physical tests, there was aptitude tests, there's all kinds of tests constantly. And in the Coast Guard, it was 8 weeks, I think, of boot camp, and each week was a different section. So you're kind of competing in one way. And in college, I slowly had gotten better grades because I wasn't scared of succeeding anymore. Because a lot of times, you might be scared of success for a lot of different reasons. I had no reasons left to be scared of, right? My dad died the first day of college. I flamed out in college because I picked too much stuff. I had nothing left to lose anymore. So I just tried to make everyone be successful around me. And in doing so, I guess inherently, I was just trying to make the team succeed, because if the team would succeed, we'd all succeed. And that's all I really cared about. I wasn't in it for me. So a certain point in boot camp, I'm not calling home. I'm this philosophy major in college. I drop out of college. I'm in boot camp. There's a Vietnam era veteran movie with Jan Michael Vincent in it, and he's in the Marine Corps, and he's all like philosophical, and he's like a badass, and nothing can get to him. And that's how I am. I'm like, I don't remember that movie, but I kept imagining myself, I'm just going to grind. I'm going to grind. So I never called my mom or anything for 5 weeks. I'd never call her. I had a girlfriend, never called her. And they start calling him to boot camp, like, where the fuck's my son? And so the company commander, at this point, I am nobody. The company commander calls me in there, and he was an ex-Marine that became a Coast Guard, HS-1 Stanton, who was awesome. And he called me, and you call your mother. And I called my mom, like, Mom, what the fuck? I'm trying to fucking get my, I'm trying to have a vision quest. But I have to call my mommy. So after that happened, the company commander, HS-1 Stanton, I guess he notices my grades, and the yeoman of they give you leadership positions. They put me in charge as a yeoman, which doesn't mean anything. I had a little bit less duties. But he had noticed, and at that point, I didn't really realize, but I was trending number one in boot camp. So out of the 80 people that come in there, I had the best test scores, I had the best physical stuff. And, I'm doing that. And there was another guy, Lance Lindgren, who was right behind me. And I remember we're getting near the end of boot camp, and we're getting in a pivot. We're doing a 1.5 mile run. You have to run it. And I just said, he was faster than me. I said, I just got to keep him in sight. So I pushed myself through, when you're running 1.5 miles, it's kind of like half sprint, half not. But I'm, my lungs are burning, but I'm like, I can't let him get out of my sight. And I ended up finishing number one in boot camp. And what that meant is you got to pick wherever you wanted to go. Everyone got to pick wherever you got to go, but I got the first choice of all the list. I got a Marlin spike. I got all kinds of crap. I got a ribbon, super boot, and all this other stuff. And why do I tell you all this is the start of leadership? You have to know how to follow. If you cannot follow, if you cannot subjugate yourself to the team and what the team needs, you can never lead, because you're not going to be empathetic. And no one's going to follow you if you're always out for yourself. What could anyone say about me? I didn't talk to anyone. I just cleaned toilets for 5 weeks. I'm just a toilet cleaner. There was a kid from San Diego, Turner, I think was his last name, and he was always a mess. We tried to help him. There was 3 or 4 of us to try to help. And so that's kind of where it started. I always had this natural, I always was an informal leader. I always was kind of a class clown. I always was smart enough to say shit to the teachers. I was in a privileged position because my dad owned a business in town and blah, blah, blah. So I just didn't even think about those things. I just thought that's how life was. Right? I'm sure when my father died, I'm sure there was a lot of people like, yeah. I'm sure there were a lot of people that were kind of happy. Not that I was that kid that threw it up. I was never the high school quarterback. I was none of that stuff. When I played basketball in high school, my final year, they let me play, and I was like the 17th guy, and they would never let me play. And, you know, I have a story about that too. But the point is, if you want to lead and you want to be in a team, the first thing is you have to learn how to follow. So how do you build a good team? You have to follow first. So I'm in this group with Sloth and Ultimate Shield. Sloth Moods and Ultimate Shield. And I follow. And I try to listen to what they say, and I try to do to what they say. And guess what they do? In turn, they do the same for me. I'm sure both of those men are leaders in what they do. They're good at what they do. How do I know? Because I can see by the work in their YouTube videos, their senses of humor, their intellect, what the things they talk about. So, and they don't try to lord over me. They didn't ask to lead me. I just subjugated myself. I'm going to do whatever I can to make the team better. And in turn, they do the same thing. So the first step of all this, we're trying to make the team win. That's the goal. Not for me to get 1850, not for me to get my things for the day. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the dingy bell, all that stuff. I'll talk more about this, but Team Building 101. You, the individual, have to learn how to follow. So if you're at work and they want you to do team building exercises, if they don't teach all of you how to subjugate yourself and follow, it's not going to work, folks. I can tell you from experience. So this is Ronan Kazi. We're going to talk more about team building. I'm in Destiny 2. I got some Division 2 stuff coming as well, the latest stuff. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, YouTube.